everyone. Today I'm super excited to have a very special guest with me, Adriana Carrig. Adriana is the CEO of Little Words Project, a company that spreads kindness, positivity, and love, one bracelet at a time. Adriana is changing the world. She's an inspiration to women to remind themselves that they are truly worthy and capable of all things. I hope you all enjoy this episode because it definitely is going to be one of the best. Thank you so much, Adriana, for joining us today and sharing your story.
Oh my goodness, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I remember when you first, I'm super excited for today. I remember when you first asked me to be on the podcast, and I got the DM, and I was like, oh my gosh, maybe it was just like her assistant answering, and then it was definitely you. I knew it in the instant, and I was like jumping up and down in my bed, screaming to my sister. I'm like, you're never going to believe it. Adriana Carrig is going to be on my podcast,
Aww.
like going around school bragging to everyone. So I'm super excited to have you here today.
Oh my gosh, of course. I am so excited. I remember getting your DM, and I think I was a little late to answering too. I think it took a little while. Because
I think it was only like 30 minutes though.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
quick.
that's the first time I've ever been that fast.
It was quick.
My assistant never answers any of my DMs. I'm the one who answers all of them, but sometimes it takes me a little bit longer because sometimes like they pile up sometimes. So anyway, when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is so sweet. Because you know what? You came with such a genuine message, such a genuine appeal, and I really felt like you really practice what you're preaching here, and I just love that, you know. So for me, it's like I love when it feels like really, really genuine, and I'm all about girl power and girl empowerment, and you know, speaking about that and talking about my journey, because you know that's all that we're about here at Little Words Project. So I'm happy to be here.
So first, just tell us a little bit about yourself and what Little Words Project is.
Sure. Okay, so I am 32 years old. I'm a new mom. I have a 11 months now. 11-month-old baby boy named Ford. I am married to my college sweetheart. We've been married for almost 5 years this year, but together for, oh my gosh, almost 13, 14. Yeah, it's been a long time. And I started my business when I was 23 years old. I had just graduated college. I went to the College of New Jersey, and I was a major in English literature and communications minor. So nothing having to do with starting a business. But I had grown up my entire life dealing with a lot of negativity from other girls. I was bullied pretty much my whole life. So from the age of kindergarten all the way through college, I can actually remember instances of negativity that I experienced. And a lot of which happened primarily in high school. And then again, like that similar kind of competitive cruelty that happens in college, which you don't know anything about yet. And hopefully you never experience it. But a lot of it is just like very female based, you know, sometimes girls, and you might have seen some of this in your all girls school, which definitely gives me anxiety just thinking about. But you know, it's that competitive kind of cruelty that exists sometimes between women. And you know, so I started making a version of these bracelets for myself just to kind of get me through difficult moments. And then when I graduated high school, went on to college, started making it for my college sorority sisters. And that was, you know, probably my first example of when women are kind to one another and when they uplift one another and when they treat each other with love and compassion, you know, true sisterhood happens. Right. And that sisterhood can move mountains if you let it, right? If we as women work together and are kind to one another, we're much more likely to achieve what we're setting out to do than if we were to tear each other down and compete in this cruel way that sometimes women do. So once I graduated, I saw that the girls were still wearing their bracelets. They were still passing them on along amongst themselves. And I thought to myself, you know what, this is probably an idea that I should be bringing to the masses, right? Like this is something that could make a difference to all women if we just, you know, put our energy out there in this positive way. So that's when I decided to make it for everyone, right? And I started it just as all good stories do, all good startups do, out of my parents' basement. I was beading every night, and my dad would be helping me with shipping. He was like my original shipping department. My mom was so integral in helping with the designing and the bracelet making, and just in general, you know, my parents were so supportive. Especially since I was supposed to go to law school and then doubled down and was like, never mind, I'm going to just beed in your basement instead. And they were so amazing about
That's
that.
great.
And did not, give me any trouble. In fact, they just asked how they could help. And I think that ultimately is really why I'm here today, because I had such a supportive group of not only my family, but also that same sorority. When I launched the website, they went out and posted it on their Facebooks, which was all that really was there at the time. And I got so much love, and we were profitable in that first month of business.
That's great.
And then, just to answer your question about what Little Words Project is, these bracelets are all about inspiring kindness and self-love amongst women. So the idea is you pick a word that means something to you, you wear that word for as long as you need it, and then one day you pass it on to someone who needs it more. So pay it forward concept. And then the best part is that each one has a little code on the back of the tag, and that code is unique to that bracelet. So when you do pass it along, you can actually once you've registered that code on our website, you can actually track and see where the bracelet goes as it moves from girl to girl.
Which is one of my favorite parts about it.
Yeah, I love that you say that too, because so many people are like, oh, I love my bracelet, I would never pass it on. But that's the best part, right? Because it's like that selfless moment that you give up something that meant so much to you for so long, and it makes that person's day. And we actually did a survey recently that of all the people who have passed their bracelets on, 100% of them would do it again. And want to do it again, because it makes you feel so good.
Great. That's great.
Exactly.
And so, like, going back to what you were saying, I think women, and especially like going to an all-girls school and just being like with social media right now, we're so easy to tear down people so quickly, like instantly judging people. And there was this great quote that my teacher said in our class the other day. It was, don't speak up for attention, speak up with intention. So that was something that stuck by me, and I was like, the reason that why you're so devoted to really getting your message across to your your buyers and the people that are wearing your bracelets, and the reason that I'm here interviewing you is to really show that we can support one another and empower one another, and really not have this negativity with one another and competitiveness. Like women are so competitive, and especially like going to all girls school and going through this college process right now, like I've seen competitive, and so I really like that your company is really out here, and having the words on your bracelet. I want to go back to saying how passing it on. So each of my bracelets that I wear have meaning to me, but really when I think of somebody, like when I think of going to college and things, I know that I'm going to want to give this bracelet to somebody because they're going to need it more than I do when I go to college. And, I think that meaningful touch of it is like really like my favorite part. And I register all my bracelets with the story of like why I have this bracelet, what the word means to me. That. And I think that's a really special part that you added to it. It's more than just a bracelet. It really is like each bracelet has a story. And I love that.
Yeah. And that's really, I mean, when I did this in college, I called them warm fuzzies. They were called warm fuzzies. And the idea was to pass them on, right? So sister to sister, if you went through something difficult, or if you were like had a test coming up, you would just pass the bracelet along. But it's not until I graduated, and I saw that people wanted to do that. It's just not until I graduated that I was like, wait a minute, there needs to be this way that you can keep track of that paying it forward and keep track of that, act of kindness and how it helps people down the line. And once I had come up with that idea, that's when I thought to myself, this could actually be something that is a real product and not just a hobby at the end of the day.
And I want to go back a second when you were saying how supportive your parents were, because my sister and I have encountered parts of, bullying or like cyberbullying, and our parents were very supportive. And like it hurts a parent to see their kids go through something like this, because no parent would ever want, and I'm sure with your son, you can now really take on that role and see that you would never want something like this to happen. And so I really like that your parents were supportive. And I think, that's the reason I'm here with my podcast. My parents, my mom and my dad and my sister have been and a lot of my friends and teachers, like the whole community is really like supportive of this idea just to empower women, because we're all doing good here. And I feel like that's really special.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I want to ask you, when starting Little Words Project, what was your strategy and what were your main goals to get your impact out there?
So to get the product out in the market. So, I like to share this story too, because I feel like it's important for women and young girls especially to know that you don't always have to have the most well thought out strategy or well thought out plan before you start something. I am not a forward thinking, like well thought out kind of person. I'm a lot more like, I feel like I have a vision and like I want to just see it come to life, and I don't always know the pathway to get there, but I just go. And I think that's something that a lot of people could benefit from. You know, we hear all the time, especially going through school and just in life, you hear the importance of a business plan or like doing like a SWOT analysis of like all the possible things that could go wrong. And I never had a business plan. I never did any of that. I genuinely just thought to myself, okay, I have an idea. I think I can find a customer for this, and I think it will do well. Yeah. So I just kind of started one day. My
great.
Initial process was, looking first into the name. I was going to name it Warm Fuzzies.
Oh,
I
really?
was like, I'm just going to keep this on. And then I looked up through the USPTO. You can go online and literally look up any trademark that exists, and saw that Warm Fuzzies was already taken. And honestly, thank goodness, because I don't think I would have survived this long with a name like Warm Fuzzies. And it was actually my husband, who is now my COO, who was then my boyfriend, was the one who said, what about just little words? Yeah. And I loved that. And I just added project because I really wanted it to feel like a movement.
Yeah.
And not just a product, not just a brand. So that's kind of how we started. Just the naming process, it was straight up just looking up,
I love that.
Where it was, and then got an Instagram account for it, got a website for it, started the ball on any marketing stuff I wanted to do. I wanted to make a video, so I kind of just reached out to people in my network, friends of friends, husbands of friends, boyfriends of friends, and they all helped me kind of put together. I say boyfriends of friends because I literally did use one of my boyfriend's friends. But I didn't lean on too many men to start this. But just the fact that I leaned on whomever I could to help get this project off the ground without having to spend an arm and a leg to do so, because it can get obviously very pricey. It was very much so a labor of love from that beginning part, and then all the way through we've just been bootstrapping it, meaning like putting our own money back into it and just continuing to build from the ground up without any outside help.
Yeah. And I can imagine like starting a business can be insanely challenging. And like, were there any like specific moments where you really were challenged in certain situations and had to make like big decisions?
Oh my gosh, the whole time. The whole time, from the naming of the product and having to think about like, what is this thing going to be called, to the process of getting the trademark accepted, to it's all, it still feels like a challenge to this very day. I think the hardest part about owning a business is as you start growing, you start having to hire people, and hiring people and managing people is a lot harder than anyone could ever imagine, especially when like you were, this is your first go at this. Like you've never done this before. You didn't go to school for this. It's all about how willing you are to learn along the way. So it's all a learning process. Yeah. So from the very beginning, I didn't know anything. I Googled, I YouTubed, I asked questions. I networked as much as I could by just asking people and just trying to listen and learn. So in so much as like I didn't know what I was doing, the whole thing has been a challenge. And we still have those challenges today. Like right before I walked in here, my head of product development came in, and she's also manages like pretty much everything. She came in and said that we have an event this weekend at the store, and the bracelets that are for the event were delivered this morning, but there was no one at the store to get it. So now it's back at FedEx, and we have an event tomorrow. We have no idea how we're going to get this product there. So still to this day, like there's challenges that we have to navigate through, and it's hard because there's only so many hours in a day to solve these problems.
And I think that comes along with like everything that you do probably, and then you're just like trying to learn through, everything's just a first. Everything's the first for you guys, and I think that's really
exactly
where you're going to see like your authenticity come through. But I also want to ask you if, when starting, because with a business, you're putting yourself out there. Everything you do is with intention. It's all you coming out there, right?
Correct.
So did you ever suffer from like imposter syndrome, where you were like, this is not for me. Like I'm not the right person for doing this. I'm not supposed to be doing this right now.
Oh my God, girl, I suffer you being here and like being so sweet and like coming with a gift and a letter, a handwritten note. No. I'm like, do I deserve this? Like, am I deserving of this?
Yes.
But so oh my gosh, it's like that. You hit the nail on the head. I would say every entrepreneur, especially entrepreneurs that see that growth happen in their businesses, do struggle with imposter syndrome, because we're just people who had an idea and were crazy enough to try it, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we are the people that deserve this kind of growth or success. It's just we just were lucky enough and maybe insightful enough in that moment to just give it a go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I struggle with that all the time. And I think the way I get through it is by having that support system that reminds me, like Mariah, who you met and who I have a podcast with and is kind of a co-founder without being an actual co-founder. She basically is. She reminds me all the time of like those days, and I think, those days from the beginning where we did earn this place that we're at, right? Even though it feels like we're imposters, because it all feels so fast, and none of us we can't really remember the pathway. We just know that, like, I genuinely feel like I woke up like this. Like, literally, I feel like I woke up one day and I was here, and I can't remember how I got here unless I really sit and take the time to think about it. Yeah. It is, but it's also like, it's a weird feeling.
Yeah, I imagine.
Because like, but then like when I sit and think about it, I'm like, I do remember those days, and it feels like yesterday.
Like, you remember those days you were in your parents' basement putting in all the effort.
Oh my gosh.
And I love that. And I think that, like, for women, so like for myself being here, like, this is like the ultimate thing. Like, I love, like, I'm going to study communications as my major and then minor in marketing.
Amazing.
And
you don't even need college. You're like incredible right now. I can't even believe you just dropped the word the term imposter syndrome. Like, what?
I love it. But but this is like walking into your office and seeing your team. It's like all so surreal, because this is like, you've inspired women and girls. Like I told you before my class, like we just did a project on women in the workforce. And if I were to get if I was in the women in business group, you would have been on my poster. Yeah. But I was in women in politics. But but I did give the presentation to the class. I was like, guys, you need to know who I'm interviewing this weekend.
You're
like,
so cute.
But just like really being that role model for us. Yeah. And so I think you are very deserving of this whole thing, because your ideas come to life and you've really made an impact and still are making an impact. So
thank you.
I really want you to know that.
Thank you.
When you were starting Little Words Project, was there anything that you wish you would have known now, like when you were starting it, that you know now?
I think I wish I would have been a little bit more intentional about what it was going to look like. I don't know, because I go back and forth. I think that if I had done anything differently, I wouldn't be where I am today. Yeah. So I really do feel very good about how we have grown and how we've done things. And yeah, we could probably be bigger and further along if I had sought like investment and gotten outside capital to help us grow quicker, right? We kind of did the bootstrap version where we didn't have any outside investment. Yeah. It was completely self-sustainable since the very beginning, but that leads to slowly growing because you're staying lean. You're not hiring 1,000,001 people that can go out and grow this thing, really, really large, really, really quickly, like some of the other, kind of high growth startup brands that we see out in the universe. All amazing, but most of them have been around for half the time I've been around. So a part of me sometimes thinks like maybe I could have done a little bit of fundraising just to try to help get us to this point a little sooner. But I don't regret how long it's taken, because it's enabled us to build a real good, like, honest to goodness community, like women and young women like you even who find out about us. Like, how long have you known about this brand?
I want to say maybe a year.
Okay.
Right now.
So you're still brand new to us, but
I'm
because of the foundation that we've built, like, you've come into what you feel is already a family. Yeah. Right. I don't mean to put words in your mouth. No. But I can only imagine that that's how you feel, and I think that's what so much time and energy being devoted into like one concept and one product and one brand, and believing in it the whole way through COVID and through all the difficulties of these past 2 years has, I think, just continued to make our roots that much stronger and that much deeper. So I do feel okay about the length of time it's taken, but sometimes I wish I had done, maybe made a few less mistakes along the way, but it is what it is. I also would say I'd probably tell myself to take a little more time for me. Yeah. And I think, I didn't really do that in the beginning. And a lot of entrepreneurs feel like they can't because it's either their business or bust. And so, there's definitely a balance that you need to strike. Leaning more so, you're probably going to be working more than you are having time for yourself, but just really prioritizing it, even if it's just, a couple of hours a week, just to like focus on you. A skincare routine, even like sleeping at least 6 hours, like just doing some of that, I think would have been a little beneficial to like my overall well-being and health and mental state. But, it's, again, I can't say I regret any of it, because it all led to this moment.
Yeah, and it's something that fascinates me that I think about all the time is like the impact of a decision. And so like picking where I'm going to school and picking all the little things that I've done in my life has led me to like be sitting here in person with you.
Yeah.
Right. So when you think about going back, like I imagine, like, is there anything that you regret, or like do you think everything with like, this is the reason why I'm here, and every mistake is why I've learned and grown and like that's why I'm here?
Yeah, I mean, well, one, this is so funny. You listen to our podcast, right?
Yes.
Do you know that my favorite quote is, and I say it every episode, and Mariah always hates. She's like, Adriana, stop saying
I love
this.
it.
And I'm about to say it on your podcast.
I love it.
But you cannot, it's by Steve Jobs. It's my favorite quote. You cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to keep going and trust that the dots will connect in the future. That is the principle that gets me through difficult times. When I'm in a difficult moment, I think to myself, I'm going to get through this, and I'm going to understand why I had to go through this.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that once you're out of it and you're past this place of, difficulty, that you don't maybe regret the moment that got you there, And I think, like, for example, I do think that a part of why, my husband and I struggled to conceive our child, Ford, we had to go through IVF at 30 years old. That feels like completely crazy. Like, why are we having to do that? So my opinions on, like, why I think it happened, like, the piece of like environmental toxins and all that aside, I do think that there's something to be said about how much stress I put on myself, on my body, on my mental state, on my, my anxiety shot through the roof. I started having to take anxiety medication while I was working. Like, it really just kind of all came from this place of like overworking myself.
Yeah.
So do I have a little bit of regret that I overworked myself and I had to go through such a difficult journey to conceive my child? Yes. However, if I didn't go through that journey and I didn't overwork myself and I didn't do all that, I wouldn't have had this baby. I wouldn't have had this child, Ford. So for that reason, no, and I've gotten myself in trouble. I mean, I've said things I shouldn't have said. I've encountered, I've made mistakes that, of course, if I could go back and take them back, I would. I've hurt people. I'm a human, right? I'm not perfect. And though I practice and preach kindness, there's always those slip ups. There's always those moments where like you're so overwhelmed and you're so stressed and you just say the wrong thing, and it can get you into hot water. And the only thing that you can do is learn from that and be better and try not to make those mistakes again. So in that regard, no, I don't regret it because I learn, but I do regret it because you don't want to leave anything but a positive, lasting impact on people. So there have definitely been times where I wish I could take things back.
And I think, like, just thinking about, what was I going to say?
Girl, you are doing so well, and like even like looking at how you're doing it. So as a podcaster as well, and my podcast is like it's like our side hustle. It's like definitely not what I do, but it's hard what you're doing to sit and like remember and to listen and to want to just ebb and flow, but to also want to go back to your questions and do it like smoothly. Good for you. I'm impressed.
Thank you. But thinking about like why, like right now, my sister and I are going through the college process, which like rejection is becoming something that's becoming like not normalized, but it's coming up a lot because we're applying to colleges, and we did decide we're going to University of Alabama, which this is last week, so I'm like freshly so excited about it. Thank you.
Did you guys? I'm sorry to interrupt you because you're going to lose this question again. But I'm wondering, as twins, did you guys like have to go to the same school together? Was that something you really wanted?
So we did. Like we've done everything together, and like last year at the summer we had lived at the beach for the summer, and that was the first time we did anything separate. Was work at separate places. It was super weird because she would work at nighttime and I'd work during the day, so it'd be like I was never really seeing her, but we'd FaceTime. We FaceTime literally when we're in the same house together, so it's like but we were like, we really do want to go because I think it's going to be much easier on our parents when they're dropping us off.
True.
And just to be able to see each other because we're going to major in different things, so it's like we'll have our own thing. And we want to.
What does she want to major in?
Criminal justice and criminology, but minor in business. And I think I'm going to mention this real quick. She's in our school right now. They have an econ class, an economics class, and they start a company. And you can like base it off a certain company, and actually hers is based off your company.
No way.
Yeah, and that's how I think a lot of people know of your company. So it's not the same thing, but it's just like,
cool.
they don't have words on it, but it's little bracelets. Cute. And she's like where our idea came from. So it's basically trying to give the students, and like people buy these products.
Wow.
And obviously she gives a lot of credit to you guys, because when the whole idea came, because everybody's like, where's your bracelets from? I'm like, Kenzie, this is what you should do. You need to, like, this would also help like people know like Little Words Project.
Yeah.
But so she's going to minor in business. And I think I personally think that she's going to love doing business, because she's the CEO of this, like they vote who's the CEO.
Cool.
And so she's the CEO of this company. It's like the students buy, and it's like, today's actually the last day you can buy, but it's like
that's a really cool project.
You have to like reach out to your and they learn all about like the business. And
that's amazing.
Kenzie's like, this is so hard. I mean, this is just a school project. Like, I don't know how all these CEOs really do it, but
it's so hard.
But so she's doing that right now. So she says criminal justice,
something like that. And when I was in high school, and
I wish I would have
couldn't have known that. Like, I think that's also the part that I struggled with, especially with college. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I just went in and I was like, I knew I hated math. Like, that's literally I knew I hated math, and I loved to read, and I could write really well. Like, that was like my thing. Well, not really well, but I thought I could, and teachers told me I could.
You could.
But I knew I wanted to do that side of the things and just avoid the math piece, so I didn't go the business route. But I actually love business. I love problem solving. I love the, going through the issues day to day and figuring out how to navigate them. That's really all being a CEO is, honestly. There's like no day that is not fun, but also it's not stressful. They're kind of one and the same. One and the same.
I get you.
But anyway, so I'm sorry we went off. I totally got off your
fine.
first question. But there you
but
go.
I definitely want to tell you that. Like,
I love
that. Like, everyone's like, I'm like, Little Words Project guys, like, to my whole school. It's a pretty small school. I'm like, guys, you need to know. And like, everybody loves it. But it's also amazing for her to get that opportunity to see.
Yeah, what she's going to want to do in her future.
Well, I was saying rejection is, becoming so normalized. I'm like, why am I getting rejected from one of my top schools, right? And Alabama was always a school that I loved. So I knew that Mackenzie and I, that's my twin sister's name, Mackenzie and I always were like the type of people that could make the most out of any school that we go to. And so I'm like, why am I not getting in? So I didn't get into University of Maryland, which was one of my top schools to go to. And I struggled with it for only a little bit, like a week. But I was like, why? Like, I'm seeing all my friends. I'm so happy for them to get in. And like, why am I sitting here? Like, why? What wasn't on the paper, or what was on the paper that was like, this isn't the person to come to this school? But I talked to one of my favorite people. Her name's Amy Larkin. Okay. She told me that you won't know now, and my parents said the same thing. You won't know now why you didn't get into the schools, but everything. So with the whole college process, every little thing is to lead me to University of Alabama and lead me to wherever I am, and I don't know why right now. I'm not at University of Maryland, or I'm not at these other schools, but soon in the future, hopefully, I realize like why that's not part of the reason.
That's like the best advice anyone could ever give you. It's the best advice that I think exists in this world is that you might not know right now, but you will eventually, and when you do, it'll all start to make sense. And I think that that's where like all of my energy has always come from. And same thing, I didn't get into my top school. I wanted to go to Villanova. Didn't get into Villanova, but I got into a handful of other schools, one of which was TC&J, which for me, I was like, it's going to be great, easy on my parents who were going to help me pay for it, and AKA pay for it. And it was such a good price point because I live in New Jersey, so it was a great like Jersey State school tuition price. Anyway, not that your listeners are Jersey students, but you get it. In-state's always better than out-of-state. But when it comes to my decision to go there, for a long time, like, I didn't love it. I dealt with a lot of negativity there. I was bullied there still. And I was like, how is this still happening to me, right? Like, how did I end up still in the same position? And a part of me was like, oh, maybe it's me. But then I just also kept telling myself, like, there will be a reason for this one day. And, like, I will understand it. And I always wanted to bring something to the world that would be about spreading that positivity and kindness and rejecting what I had been experiencing my whole life. So the fact that it kept going was just more of the universe saying, because you need to keep going in this. You need to keep walking through this. You need to get out on the other side so that you can come back and make a difference. And it also ended up being where I met my husband and now where I have why I have my baby. So it all ended up happening as it should have, despite the fact that I, for many nights, cried myself to sleep, even once I got to that school. So, I think absolutely, you're right. Yes, that's a rejection, and rejection is hard, but it's also a part of life. And I still experience rejection to this day. We were going to open a store actually in a location in Miami, and we were rejected. They didn't let us. The landlord was like, no, they don't have enough of a presence. And I'm like, you go on this high and you're like, wait.
I'm like, I can tell you.
I'm like, wait, I couldn't even wrap my head around that, because we were doing so well at our other retail store in the city, and we're doing so well, you know, as a business. And to hear someone say that, nope, you're not like good enough for our space, I was like, what? It's like but it's good. It's a reality check, but it's a good reality check, because it keeps you on your toes. It always keeps you like nimble and ready to adjust. And, you know, life wouldn't be life if there wasn't friction, right? If there wasn't like one side versus another, you know, at all times. So
it's like one of the things I think about is like everything that I've done, like just to think about like every little thing that I've chosen to do leads me to here. And like I hope you realize like just because you were making bracelets in your parents' basement lets you here and gives the girls, like I wrote in the note, gives me the dream to one day I want to be like my ultimate dream. And I know
what
you
is
share
it?
the dream.
I'm very interested.
It's like Forbes, and you're written by Forbes, right?
I did get a Forbes article, but I didn't get Forbes under 30.
That's one of my dreams.
You're gonna get it.
Thank
you are going to
or
get
like
it.
I love looking at Fortune 500 lists, like CEOs,
You're
and
so
anything like that. But that wouldn't be my dream if I didn't have a woman like you to look up to and a CEO
Thank
to look up to.
Wow.
And
no pressure.
And I hope you really know it. No, not at all.
No
Everything
pressure
you've
at
done,
all.
I love it.
No, but you're sweet, because I love that, and I really want. That's what I want to be. I want to be. So have you ever heard of the? She's a podcaster, but she also has like a platform on Instagram. It's called To Be Magnetic. So it's basically all about what's it called? Calling things in, manifestation.
Yeah.
So she's all about being a manifester and a master manifester. But part of being able to manifest something, part of being able to achieve something, is first believing that you can. This is also my mantra. I believe wholeheartedly that if you do not believe in yourself, no one else will. Why should they, right? And if you do not believe it's possible, it is not possible. That's just the way it goes. But part of believing in yourself and believing that it is possible is seeing someone else doing it, like you just said.
Yeah.
And she calls them expanders. So what you're saying is that I'm an expander for you.
You definitely are.
Oh, thank you. And that's all I want to be for anybody. I love that. I think that that's like the number one thing that, you know, I care about when it comes to this business is that fact that I am able to inspire other women and like be that expander for the young next generation, because I didn't really have a ton of women to look up to in that space. And also we didn't have as much access to them.
Right.
The difference now is Instagram's here, right? Or these social media platforms. Facebook became a thing when I was in high school, and it wasn't a space where you could like see people kind of rise in the ranks as far as like, you know, who has influence or who, you know, has a ton of followers. It wasn't like that.
Yeah.
So with Instagram and, you know, the start of that next wave, yes, it's also brought with it a lot more negativity, right? A lot more cruelty that exists. So I'm glad I didn't grow up with it, honestly. But it's also brought visibility to these people's lives, and like you can see what my day-to-day looks like. And I'm actually really trying to get my act together with like TikTok and posting these reels of my day, a day in my life, because I think that it's important that you see as young women that, you know, one, it is possible if you believe in yourself, but two, this is what it looks like. You know, is it for you? Because it's not for everyone. It's hard. It's hard to, one, be an entrepreneur, two, then transition into a CEO. And frankly, I don't even think I'm as good at either of them as you're making me out to be.
No,
I'm just trying, and I'm trying to also be as honest along the journey as I possibly can, and that's all we can ask of any of our expanders, right? It's like, let us see their real stuff. So hopefully I'm doing an okay job.
You're doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
But like when coming into here and like when I first DM'd you, and you never know, like when I ever reach out, like that's one of my things that I like really try to stick with myself is like, don't be scared to reach out to these people, because like if I was scared to reach out to you, I wouldn't have this opportunity that I have today, right? But I never knew I was going to get back. I was like, I don't know if she does. I thought you did your Instagram because everything seems so like vulnerable and authentic and raw, and like I really could see your actual life and how it was, rather than some other Instagrams. It's like I can kind of tell that maybe someone's running it for them. But when I reached out to you, I was like, I don't know, like I'm nervous, like should I send it on DM? Like I don't know if I should email, like a work email. And I sent it to you and you responded. I want to say it was like 30 minutes. It was quick because I literally saw it come down in my notifications and I was like, I had to take a minute. But everything was so authentic. Like when I came in here today, I was so nervous. Like I had to take. We went to Starbucks this morning. And I was like, I gotta take a second, Mom, because my mom's outside waiting.
What?
And I'm gonna tell her to come in when she's at the end.
She's outside waiting.
Well, she might be at Starbucks again, but
Tell
I don't
her
know.
to come in here. Oh my God, Madison.
No, I don't think she's outside waiting right now. But she was like, "You do your own thing right now." And so she said, "I'm gonna go around."
Okay.
She's definitely not out. I don't want to seem like
no. You put your mom outside in the car.
No, but she was like, "This is your thing."
But this is the point about you that is just so incredible and genuine. Like you are just your energy is so good. Your aura is incredible, and you can just tell how authentic and genuine you are. And I heard that through the phone, like literally, I heard it through the comment, the DM. Like I half want to pull it up to read it to everybody because that is what got you here. It's not just your fear of not doing it. It was how genuine you were, and it's so important.
Yeah.
So I won't interrupt because I can derail.
No, you're fine.
But guys, okay,
just
so
let
your
you know, my
mom's in the
mom
car.
is not out. She's probably at Starbucks, guys.
So
I don't
your
wanna
mom's
seem like I
sitting,
kicked her
waiting,
out.
twiddling her thumbs. No, it's fine.
But I don't know where I was gonna go with that.
I'm sorry. I knew I was gonna do that.
No, this is like the problem all the time. I'm like,
okay, so you were saying, Mom, I need to take a breather.
Oh, I need to take a breather.
Yes.
I'm so nervous. Like I don't know. Like I always knew that you were gonna be like 10 times better than I ever expected, and you are.
Oh my gosh.
I just want to let you know because like these, like I really.
I'm
am
having
thankful.
imposter syndrome.
No.
I need to take a breather
No.
myself.
Yeah.
What's
but,
happening?
But I was like, Mom, I need to take a breather because I'm so nervous. And the second I walked in here, like I want to ask you a question about this. Your workers, everyone's face was just like, and I was like, "Hi, I'm Madison." And they were just, when I went on the tour around the office, everybody was just like, "Hi," and then they were like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "It's podcast day."
Yes.
I was like so excited. But when you are hiring people, how do you decide? Because like now what is your team? How many people do you have in
About
your team?
30 full time.
So and is a lot of it women?
Yes, it's mostly women with the exception of my husband, one of my other team members' husbands, and our best friend from college.
And Ford.
And Ford.
Can't
Can't forget the baby.
But how did you decide like which person and how they were going to, help your team and really be a benefit to your team? How did you decide on all of that?
You're asking such great questions because these are all like the hardest parts of growing a business and being a CEO and like going from being an entrepreneur person with an idea to being a person who has to like run a business. And at the end of the day, it was a matter of finding the right people and also when you found the wrong people, knowing how to move away from them. And that's been the single hardest part of running this show. It's truly been like people, problems. The bigger the company, the bigger the problem, right? So as we've grown and there's been more and more people, that's more and more opinions. And it's not lost on me that I reject this concept of women, right? Sometimes because I feel like women can just be ugly to one another. And I employ pretty much all women. And it is very much so a journey to be able to communicate well, kindly, be constantly kind of unlearning everything we've learned growing up that even if it was subconscious, unlearning the need to compete, unlearning the need to be the smartest person in the room and, kind of the backhanded things that can sometimes take place amongst girls, right? It's like, how do you bond? Sometimes it's by putting down someone else with someone else, right? So it's like me and you talking about the new girl. Yeah. We really, I have a zero tolerance policy for that, of course, because of everything that we've gone through. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't still sometimes happen under my nose or that I don't sometimes accidentally engage in something that I don't mean to engage in. And it's just, that's been part of the hardest part. And I say all that because it's kind of how it's informed how we've grown. And so I'll bring it. So my first hire here, the longest hire here is Mariah. So she's been here for 5 years. Anyone that I had between then, between 8 years ago when I started and 5 years ago, so those first 3 years, they didn't kind of end up sticking around. So whether it was they went back to school or they weren't the right fit or they just couldn't kind of not hack it, but again, startup world is not for everyone because it's a lot of millions of hats and late hours.
I can
it's
imagine.
Difficult. Yeah. So Mariah's been here the longest. She found us on Instagram. And then from there, it's been, I had relatives that have come and helped. Then it has been kind of like a domino effect since then. So one person knows someone who's been in the industry and they bring them in and then that person leaves, but that person brings in someone they know. And we've just curated it from there. As far as knowing who and what type of role I needed to fill next, it was always in the beginning, it was just hands, help, people that can come in and help literally, whether it was making a bracelet or packing a box or going to a trade show or just you know, sweeping a floor, like anything we would need, we all were willing to do. And then I knew that I needed to hire new people when the people we had could no longer do it without some extra help. So we'd start to experience that, and then it would be very organic, where we'd be like, oh, okay, we need someone else for this event, or we need someone else, and then they'd stay.
Right.
And that's kind of how it grew. It wasn't until the past really year and a half that I started strategically hiring for roles that were like higher level, right? So any of our, you know, leads, we call them, but they're pretty much our VP levels, you know, come with actual experience. They're not just girls who want to help and learn. But it's also led to more problems, right? Of making sure that we're now teaching tiered people, like once it becomes more hierarchical and more of a tiered system and less of like, we're all in this together, you have to like manage managers and how they're leading and making sure that your message is getting all the way down to whomever just started, or like that the intern knows our principles. And there's just so many pieces to it that I don't even know if I'm answering your question. You can tell this is the part that I'm like, it's the most draining piece, because you know, you really want to do right by people. You want to practice what you preach, but sometimes, you know, people make things hard. So
and like everything, like when I said like I came in, everyone was just so like how I would have imagined. Everyone was so friendly and so kind. One of my favorite rooms, I hope I can say this. One of my favorite rooms in your office was when there are girls and they're making the bracelets, because it shows like the bracelets that I wear are coming from people that are making the actual
making them.
And it comes with so much meaning that this is just more like I told you, this bracelet has a story. Every bracelet that I wear has a story. And I want to ask you, because you are impacting the world one bracelet at a time. I love saying that. I feel like it's so cool.
It's so sweet.
But when did you first see, or there was a first instance or moment that you really saw the impact you were making on your community?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it really started in those first few years. I think it was my first street fair where someone drove from like 2 hours away to come. They had seen us on Instagram and they had purchased a bracelet and they wanted to get more in person, and they wanted to tell me about how the bracelet has already affected them. And it was actually a young girl like you.
Oh, that's awesome.
Her and her friend. And they told me that story, and it was like my first experience realizing like, wow, this is like affecting people, you know. And Mariah and I always joke, we say it's plastic on a string, right? And that's really what it is. I mean, not all of it is plastic. Some of it are glass beads, we got crystals, we got good stuff, but the letters are acrylic plastic. So that's just what it is, unfortunately. But we joke about it, and we sometimes do that because it like distills it down to this like very simple concept of what it is, but it is so much more than that. And I think that's not only is partially a testament to like, you know, the marketing piece and how well we're able to tell the story, but also it's a testament to the community and the fact that people are ascribing meaning to these bracelets. You say every single one of your bracelets has a story, meaning that when you're thinking about who you're going to give it to, you're like intentionally thinking about, okay, this one, I can't do this one yet. I'm not ready. I can maybe do this one. They honestly really need this one, and they need it more than me, so I'm going to do it.
When I think about it.
Exactly. That's the process, and that's how I do it too. I'll look down at my wrist. I'll sometimes be out, and I'm like, ooh, I'm sorry, none of these can go. I can't pass anything on right now. I'm sorry, but hopefully I meet you again in life, and I will pass on whatever I have then.
I get that.
But sometimes you almost have to wear one that's just like can be given, because otherwise you'll never give them up. And people say that. But anyway, long story short, my first experience, hearing of people's experience with them and knowing how much they've affected them, really, you know, that first experience was what told me I had something special. And ever since then, anytime I hear a story, anytime we read a registration, anytime we, you know, think about what this brand is to people, it blows my mind. Like even this moment right now is going to absolutely, I'll never forget it. I really won't. Like, it'll be 5 years from now and someone's going to be like, at what point did you realize like you actually had, you know, grown significantly enough to have, and I'm like, literally when this one girl, Madison, like came in and like blew up my head.
I love that. I'll tell you a story. So when I was walking in and I was getting the tour, people were asking me, or your assistant was asking me, what is your favorite word? Because I saw the wall of bracelets and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, if I had heaven, this is heaven. I'm like, my friends are literally like, you should take it up to your arm. And I'm like, I want to take it up to my elbow, but I'll keep it some on.
So cute.
But so in October, so I'm 17.
Okay.
In October, I ran Chicago Marathon with my dad.
Wow.
And I was very new to running. My dad was...
You are a unicorn.
Thank you.
Are you kidding?
But
You ran a marathon already?
Yes, it was tough. But
You're
I
going to be
loved
on
every
Forbes
second.
under 20, girl. You have like 3 years before you're ready. Like, I'm so
Thank
blown
you.
away by you. Wow.
And this kind of goes back to some of the things that we talked about. Like when I ran it, I got a bracelet and it says badass on it.
Love that.
Because I need to, I got it after. But after running it, the week after, I didn't feel like right. I thought I was going to feel like, oh my gosh, I feel amazing right now. Like I could do anything. And that's how I felt like the day after. And then I started to think was like, wow, like all this work I put in, it's done. Like, what do I do now? Like for months, I've been every day was about running. Every day was about making sure that mentally, because like sometimes I had to take breaks because mentally it got to such an unhealthy place. And I'm like, if I don't run, then I'm going to be like beating myself up about it. Like I'm not going to be the best person I can be. And this goes back to a couple of other points that we talked about. Like if I would take back anything, like all the things, all the mistakes, all the challenges that I came across during that process, I would not take nothing back. I wouldn't take a day back. I wouldn't edit anything because I learned so much. But the bracelet just reminded me, and this is what I was going to say, going into the week after, and I was telling like some of my teachers at school, I was like, because I'm close with like a couple of different teachers, I've really made a big impact, and hopefully one day they'll be on my podcast. But I was like, something doesn't feel right. Like I'm almost, because some people, you know, you're not going to get best reactions from everybody. Some girls thought I was, you know, too much. Some girls thought that I was just like trying to brag. You know, I had comments here and there about it. And I was almost got to this point where I was like embarrassed, right, to talk about the marathon, to say that I ran a marathon, because I didn't want to seem like I was an overachiever, but I did achieve it, right? And I don't think that's a bad thing sometimes, because it was such a big accomplishment. I want to say I looked at all, like, tried to look through all the ages. I want to say 17 was like the youngest age. I didn't see anyone else that was 17, but I can't say that I was the youngest, but I want to think that I was the youngest out there. But your bracelet, like, I don't know if I'll ever give this bracelet up. Maybe I will. Not right
okay
now.
if you can't. That's
Not
okay.
right now. This one I can't.
You're only supposed to give it up when you no longer need it or you think someone else needs it. Absolutely.
I'm probably
more.
giving it up. But this bracelet, not yet. But this bracelet really helped me just when I would look down at my wrist, and like whether it's in school and I'm writing something, I just see it glance through my eye. And I remember, you know, I did that. So like taking a test, all these things become easy because I put myself through one of the hardest. That was one of the most life-changing things I've ever done. One of the hardest experience that I went through. That like the bracelet just reminds me. So like again, like I hope you realize your impact, because this bracelet has so much, like when it glances my eye, like I say that when I just like am doing something, because I wear, these are my bracelets, everyday bracelets, I never change it up. But
I love that.
this bracelet means so much to me, and all of them do. You know, I have like matching ones with my twin sisters, so if like we were to go to different colleges, or if we're not in the same space, I can always remember that this is her. And but yeah, so each bracelet, and I want to ask you, this is where my question was coming on. What word or what bracelet is your bracelet that you live by?
Okay, I'm going to answer that, but first I want to touch on something that you just said, because I just like, this is also I'm an unsolicited advice giver, which is why no one should ever give me a microphone. But you, I think, are so incredible.
Thank
and
you.
I've said
really
that now so many times.
No, every time.
I can't wait to like,
forget
you're going to be my little
this.
mentee. I'm going to keep you in my pocket forever. Because I just love you. But what I will say to you, and I just heard it in how you kind of, even when you're speaking, right? Like you kind of sometimes double down and you're like, wait, I just want to explain why I was thinking that. Or, it seems like you put so much energy and thought into, you know, how you're going to not necessarily be perceived, because I do think that we all have to work through like not caring what people think and just like owning it and living through it. But it's so hard, and I know that. And I think I can only say this from my position now, you know, twice your age, and having gone through so much difficulty throughout my life as far as the bullying, and actively knowing what people think of me. And we're not supposed to know what other people think of us. We're just not supposed to. But because of the nature of being bullied, and then also now cyber crap that, you know, whatever you said, you got a few comments or like that needs to be tossed so far off the nearest bridge. You need to not have any insight into what people think of you. And if you do, you need to flex the muscle of trying not to worry about it. You can care. You can think about it. But you can't let it worry you. You can't let it spiral you. You can't let it prevent you from what it is that you want to achieve, or who you are, or what you think of yourself. And that's the other piece I wanted to touch on. When you said sometimes I don't want to, you know, like seem like I'm bragging, and I don't want to like talk about it, because I mean, it's like, yes, I achieved it, but like, and sometimes that's okay. Like you kind of said that. And I'm like, yes, it's okay. Because if you do not, then who will?
Yeah.
If you're not going to celebrate yourself, if you're not going to talk positively about yourself, if you're not going to believe you're the best person in the room, then why would anybody else?
Yeah.
I am borderline cocky. Like, I'm so confident it's borderline.
I think inside I am.
It's
scared.
borderline cocky. But as long as you're also humble when it counts, because like it doesn't, I think the world of myself. I think I'm freaking amazing. And my mother
I love
is that way. My mom is a
Yeah.
Mexican immigrant,
Yeah.
came from absolutely nothing, and is an incredibly has beyond blown me away in her life journey to where she is to this day, and you know what she's built for herself. So she has taught me that exact principle, that you can be whatever you want to be, right? And this leads into my word. But you have to believe in yourself first, and you have to love yourself, and you should look in the mirror every single morning. My mom looks in the mirror still to this day. She's almost 60 years old, looks in the mirror and says, I am awesome.
I love it.
Every morning she starts with, I am awesome. And she believes it about herself too, you know, and maybe that rubs people the wrong way sometimes, but whatever, c'est la vie. We can't please them all, and you won't please them all, because no matter how great you are, no matter how much you achieve, no matter how much good you do for others, you're always going to be talked about.
Yeah.
Especially, in fact, depending on how big you become and how much you do and how much you achieve.
Yeah.
That is when you actually get talked about more.
Yeah.
So the only thing you can do is ignore it, look at it, take it in if you must, sit with it, journal about it, talk to your therapist about it, whatever it is you need to do, but don't let it determine who you are, who you become, and what you are willing to go after, because this is my word, long segue, believe. Believe is far and away my favorite word. I pretty much always have it on. Anytime I have to make a sample, I make the sample and I put the word believe, because I want to wear the sample and I want to wear the word believe. It is the number one word that you need to have ingrained into your heart and soul. And it's because I truly believe that if you don't believe in yourself, and if you're not able to trust, that's another great word, trust and believe. I also wear that one. If you're not able to trust that, you know, things will work out as they should, and you're not able to like genuinely put that in your mind, put it in the universe, put it out there, and if you're not willing to talk about it because you believe in it so much, then it's not going to happen. Yeah. And that's just the reality of it. Of course.
And you know, like growing up, like when I was doing this podcast, like I said, like for a while I was getting like just like, you know,
I'm sure.
And so like before coming in here, my mom's like, I hope you know that like girls your age, because my sister is one of those like she got student of the year last year, I believe. Wow. For Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Okay. So she was going to do this podcast with me, but she does her own little thing. She's like, I think raised maybe close right now to $50,000 for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And my mom just I need to meet your mother.
I can't wait for her to come inside. I'm going to text her. Oh my God.
She is like, I want you guys to know that, you know, girls your age aren't doing this type of stuff. And I know that. You know, I know when I was running the marathon, and I know when I got all this backlash, I'm like, all these girls that are saying this aren't doing things like I'm doing, and no one's starting a podcast, which I love. I feel like I need to tell everybody, like, this is great. Maybe if you want to do that, do it, like, right? Yep. But just to like remind myself, and I love the advice you gave me, and I will literally replay that all the time in my head.
You're so cute.
But like just growing up, like you know, as you grow up, it's so hard. But just remembering that, like, I'm only 17, and yet here I am interviewing somebody and putting myself out there. Mm-hmm. So like the fear of like judgment is like always in the back of my head. Like what is this person thinking? Are they going to think I'm cocky? Like when I bring up the marathon, like
no,
like that.
Oh my God, no. And you know what? The right people won't. The people who matter. What's that? My quote that I love. It's not my quote, but it's a quote that I love. It's the people who mind don't matter, and the people who matter won't mind. I love it. And it really is like the ones who have something negative to say, they don't matter. And guess what? In 10 years, they're going to say, "Oh yeah, I actually knew Madison back in high school." That's going to be what they say. Are you kidding? I would love to be a fly on the wall in some of the conversations of my haters. I really would, because I mean, I know for a fact that there are people out there who cannot wrap their head around what we have built thus far. And I'm sure it gets them a little bit. And you know what? Fine by me. Sorry, you shouldn't have been such an asshole. Yeah. Like, you know, but again, people grow, people change. I probably shouldn't curse on this. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
But that's my point. Like, it gets me riled up because it's so standard for people to have something to say. When you're ahead of somebody, right? When you're out in front, and not to say that we're all, that it's a competition, because it's not. But people naturally, that's just life, right? There's the rising tide, right? There's ships in water. You buoy, you go up and down, up and down. There are moments where I'm at my lowest and other people that maybe aren't business owners are feeling at their highest. And it doesn't matter what they've achieved. It just matters how they feel, because that's what's real, right? Perception is reality. So how do you feel in this moment? I could be the richest woman in the world, which I'm not, but I could be the highest powered CEO, again, which I'm not. But if I'm not happy, then what's the point? I'd rather be happy. Right? So as long as whatever you're doing is lighting you up, then what people have to say about it doesn't matter.
Right.
And nor is it any of your business. Because let them have their moment. Let them be unhappy where they are, because that's what it means. They're unhappy. And that's why they have to kind of take you down. So if you're here, if you're able to be talked about, it's because you're kind of just out of reach of them. They're trying to grab you back. So that's where that backlash kind of starts to come from.
And as like you say, like, you deal with like, and I'm not gonna like put words in your mouth, but you're probably still dealing with things like this today.
Oh yeah.
But I just like when that happens with me, I think about all the people that I've impacted. When I put my first podcast out there, I mean, like, it's going to be nice to, like, listen back, like, years from now. Hopefully I'm still doing this. Years from now and listen to that first podcast to see where I've grown. But the amount of comments that I got from close friends that I haven't talked to in a while, and realized how that one podcast impacted them, like, really saw that maybe I'm going through the same thing that they're going through, is, like, the reason I'm doing this whole thing. So I'm not going to let one word and, one word, one person, one comment, one rating on the podcast stop me from doing what I'm doing, because I know that I'm making an impact and I want to make an impact. And that's like my whole goal with doing this.
Yeah.
So,
and you are. And even if it's just at the smallest level, and I think that's what's so beautiful too about like the concept of this bracelet, right? It's so small. It's so simple. It might only impact one person in that moment, but it then has the power to impact another and then impact another. So you might only be impacting, whatever the first few people that reached out to you, right? Even if you never did another podcast episode again, you did your job. You impacted those 3 people. And because of what you taught them, they're going to be impacting others. And then once that happens, they impact others. So even if at the end of the day, you never did another thing again, you've already impacted so many. Yeah. And I think, I would caution you, just again, me out here with all this advice, against putting too much pressure on yourself to actually make an impact, because ultimately you're going to make impact along the way without even realizing. You're going to say something kind. You're going to be the light of someone's day that you don't even realize you've done, and that's okay too, right? Yeah. So don't put too much pressure to actually have that be the end goal. Just enjoy the process, enjoy the journey, enjoy learning and meeting from people, and and I understand why you say that, because you're an ambitious young woman. Like you're absolutely looking at your future, and you it sounds almost like you have this feeling of like maybe not a time clock, but you're conscientious of your age against what you're doing, and it's very insightful. It's very smart. I mean, you can tell you're such an intelligent person, but sometimes the smartest ones end up with the most kind of mental turmoil, right? Because we're constantly sitting and thinking, not to say that I'm one of the smartest ones, but I'm a lot like you, right? And we're always sitting and thinking like, oh my God, how am I going to, get past, how am I going to achieve what I want to achieve in the time I want to achieve it? And when I didn't get Forbes under 30, that final year, I was like, nothing happened, right? Like I wasn't like devastated, because I was so busy I couldn't be devastated. I couldn't even be worried about it, because I was doing the thing that I wanted them to recognize me for. So whatever. I missed it. Okay, I'm 32. Does it still like grind my gears when you bring it up? I'm like, fucking Forbes, like they're always. But I luckily I was able to get an article. But even if I hadn't gotten that, I'm still here. I'm still here to tell the story. I still got to have my beautiful baby. I still focus on the things that I love most, and I'm still driving change and impact in my own community. And as long as you feel like okay with what you're doing, even at that small level, that's incredible too, right? So don't put too much pressure on yourself. And anyone listening, don't ever put too much pressure on yourself. Just enjoy it. Enjoy the ride. Remember to have fun. My husband and I were just saying this the other day, like, this past week has been hard. It's been hard with a lot of the just moving to this office, and the dust is settling and everyone's working together again. I'm coming back to work. I've been working from home for 11 months. Okay. I'm finally just now back. And we've been like stressed, and he and I like said to each other, we're like, we have to remember this is supposed to be fun. Like he quit his finance career 6 months ago and moved to, work here as a COO of his wife's jewelry company. And never did it feel
I'm sure
feasible.
He loves it.
Yeah, it was always something we were like, this would be cool. As I was beating in all of our different apartments until our house, it's moved. He's grown with it. Yeah. But we never thought it would be feasible. And now that it is, it's like, this was the dream. And we're living in it. Yeah. So we have to remember that. And we have to always enjoy each moment as it comes and never put that too much pressure on ourselves. Because, it will never be what you anticipate in your head. Kind of like what you said about the marathon, right? After that week, you're like, why don't I feel like this changed my life? Yeah. That's so normal. Yeah. What an experience. What a life lesson you learned there. I look back and changed
my life, but like that moment.
In that moment, you're like, so that's why it's like you just never want to build the moment up too much, right? Yeah. Anticipation is always greater than realization. Yeah. So you just always want to be mindful of that. And, don't set yourself up for disappointment. Be proud of yourself for even running one. I'm like beyond impressed with you for running. I gave birth and I can't run. In my head, I can't run a marathon, but I went through that nightmare. So trust me, like you are incredible. And I think you just have to always remind yourself of that. I think you could benefit from like every morning saying, I am incredible.
I'm going to now.
I am awesome, just like my mother.
I love it.
And I am going to achieve all that I want to achieve, but I'm going to have fun while doing it.
Yeah. Okay, so final question. Okay. And I also think that's great, though, to think that, like, my dad talks a lot about, if work isn't fun, then, like, why are we doing it? So he tries to make, like, I know my dad is very outgoing, he's much like me, but he's, like, very, he reminds us that, like, when you're older, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Just know that, if it's making you happy, are you having fun with it? Are you knowing that you're making your impact?
Your parents need to write a book. Your parents truly need to write like How to Raise Your Children book. Like legit, I will read that because you are incredible. I hope my son is like you one day.
Oh my gosh, that's like the biggest thing.
Oh my gosh, seriously. I'm just like so impressed.
But my last question is to my listeners and to those girls that are struggling with bullying, struggling with self-confidence, struggling with finding themselves and their worth. What would you say to them?
It gets better. Yeah. And if you're in it right now, I'd say listen to this episode over and over again. I mean, you asked some incredible, insightful questions, and I think it's one of my favorite podcasts I've ever been on, so you know. I think that the story that we told here is one that all young girls and maybe young boys too can relate to. And it's just, we hit on a couple of things that I would say to them, right? Don't let what other people think affect whether or not you're going to try something. And when you do try that thing, believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, you're not going to get there. And along the way, enjoy the process, enjoy the journey, and understand that even though you might be going through something difficult right now, at some point in time, it will make sense. It might not make it better right now, but at some point, you will be able to look back and understand it. And I think if nothing else, that should provide you with the solace and the just the confidence that you're on a path that you should be on. And you might need to be the girl that's going through this difficulty, because it's going to change the lives of those around you one day, somehow, some way, even if it's just by showing how resilient you were. And someone saw how resilient you were, so now they know that they can get through it too. We're all impacting one another. We're all interwoven as people, and especially as women. And I think we could all benefit from knowing that it's not going to ever benefit you to be unkind to the person to the right or left of you. You can have opinions. You can talk about them honestly in your quiet moments of solitude. You can think about them. You can journal about them. And maybe you have to have those moments where you and your friend just vent about what someone said to you or how someone is or whatever. But as long as you make others feel good, as long as you're impactful to their face in a way that makes them feel okay and feel better, and you're kind, you lead with the kindness, you just never know what doors will open up for you in the future. You never know how you're impacting that person now. That's going to lead to 5 years down the line, they tell you, oh, actually my friend knows how to make websites and they can help you do it for half the cost. Now it's like, oh, wow, glad I was nice to you 5 years ago. Glad that you have such a positive experience with me that you want to help me now. And that just keeps happening through life, right? So the more good positivity you put out there, the more it comes back to you. And along the way, you just really have to trust that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're experiencing what you're supposed to be experiencing, and what other people think of you really does not matter.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you how little I care about the opinions that they had of me. In fact, I'm grateful it happened because I would never have thought to start this business if I didn't go through that, right? And it builds character when you got to go through some difficult shit. Sorry, but it does. It makes you into who you are, and life would be boring if we were all just like perfectly fine and never had friction. You know, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much
Madison,
for joining us.
So
I'm
good.
So excited.
I like
perfect.
Can't wait to like take clips from this. Like this is like we had some gems.
We did.
I'm
we
really
did.
excited.
I'm excited to go back to my
Good
class
for
and be
you.
like, guys,
you're gonna have to listen
we need
to
an
this one.
assembly. We need to. Everyone needs to listen.
This needs to be a whole thing.
Insightful.
I love that.
Just tell us where everyone can find you.
Yeah. Okay. So you can find me. I'm sure you already know because of Madison screaming it from the rooftops.
Yes.
But at Little Words Project on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, actually. We are on TikTok. Really cute videos. And then you can go to the website, littlewordsproject.com, to shop. And also we're sold in Nordstrom and a bunch of other retailers nationwide. And then you can find me personally at Adriana Carrig, ADRIANA CARRIG, on Instagram and also TikTok, building that up, and find other kind of like business tips and just, if you're ever needing or going through something difficult, I really do try to be as responsive as possible, especially to anyone who is asking for advice or help. So you can always either email me, which you can find in my bio of my Instagram, or you can DM me, and I'd be happy to help walk you through whatever it is you're going through, because I've been there, and it can seem really dark.
And go listen to our podcast. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, Glow Through It. Oh my God, I forgot about the podcast.
Amazing. Yes,
it's not as good as this one, so don't get your hopes up. You're so sweet.
Well, thank you everybody for listening today. Smile today. Have a great day, and I'm so excited, and I hope you love this. Bye.